Hello everybody. In today's video, we will be doing the chapter 4 Financial Systems and Procedures, Business and Technology ACCA. So in this chapter, we will be learning about what are the financial systems and what are the procedures of them in any business organization. Overview of the systems. Accounting systems lay down procedures and guidelines that reflect the company's policies. So these terms are explained below. The first thing is system. So what is a system? A system is a group of independent but interrelated elements comprising of a unified whole. A system is a process of obtaining an objective. A system is a group of individual but interrelated elements comprising a unified whole, or it is a process in which a certain objective is to be achieved. What is a policy? A policy is a guiding principle. A policy is a guiding principle which the organization must follow. Procedure. A procedure is a series of acts or a series of sequence of steps. What is a guideline? A guideline is a recommended approach for conducting a task. A recommended approach for conducting a task. XYZ Limited has developed a new sales system. Its policy is to process orders from customers efficiently and to dispatch goods within 2 days. The system contains procedures for the ordering, dispatching, invoicing, and receipt of the payment for goods and to ensure the policy is followed. It also has guidelines on assessing the creditworthiness of new customers. Okay, so it has a set of guidelines, policies, and procedures which it needs to follow. Give an example of each of these terms with the context of enrolling for an ACCA course: system, policy, procedure, and guideline. So, what is the system here? The system is the process by which a student selects which paper he or she wants to take, enrolls for the course at a tuition provider, and pays. What is the policy in this situation? The tuition provider has a policy that only students who have been briefed about what ACCA is, only they can apply. What is the procedure? The student's details are entered onto the computer and the student registration card is produced. What is the guideline? Students are recommended to sit no more than 3 papers in full-time employment. I hope that's clear. Now let us see what are the advantages of formal systems. So there are several advantages to having formal documented systems that staff must follow within the organization. These include all transactions will be recorded in the same way and the required information will be recorded in the correct places. Alright, so transactions are recorded in a uniform manner and it is recorded in the correct places. And then we have the best practice to most efficient way of recording transactions can be adopted by everyone. So whatever is the best practice that can be adopted by the organization. Staff can refer to the written procedures if they are in doubt as to what to do. So when the staff has any doubt, they can obviously refer to the documents. New staff can be trained more quickly. Since we have a formalized approach, it is very easy for me to train the new staff. The auditors can follow transactions more easily if they are recorded in the same way. Transactions which have not followed the procedure, which could be errors or frauds, may be identified more easily. So what are the advantages of formal systems? Recording in the same way in the correct places, it's the best practice. Staff can refer to it, new staff can be trained easily, it will be easy for auditors, you can recognize the faults easily. It is particularly important to have formal policies and procedures in place when organizations such as solicitors or banks handle money on behalf of their customers. So as this money does not belong to the business, it is vital for them to have controls in place to help prevent the loss of client funds, either through fraud, theft, or accidental loss. Should such losses occur, it would damage the organization's reputation as well as potentially having legal implications. So now let us talk about designing financial systems. Each system is made up of a series of procedures. The system designer will need to first consider the objectives of the system, the required outputs, and the likely inputs. Let us take a sales system for an example. So what is the objective of a sales system? to record the value of sales to each customer and the amount of outstanding which has to be collected. What are the outputs? An analysis of sales by date and product type, a report showing amounts owing, receivables and how long outstanding. Inputs: customers place orders by fax and by telephones. The designer then needs to consider the most likely sequence of events from input to output. So, what should the designer of a sales system consider? Order is received, goods are dispatched, invoice is also sent to the customer, the sale is recorded in accounts, payment is received from customer, outstanding amounts are followed up. For each step in the system, a procedure is then designed using the same format as for the system. The designer should also consider what could go wrong and incorporate controls into the system to try to prevent such errors. Let us consider this for the ordering stage of the system. So, ordering stage. We are first discussing the ordering stage. So, what are the objectives? To receive and process the orders quickly and accurately, to ensure that the goods are only dispatched where the amount charged will be collectible. And then what are the outputs? Instruction to dispatch department to dispatch the goods, instruction to the accounting department to invoice, charge for the goods. What are the inputs? Note of the telephone call or the fax. And what could go wrong? The details of the orders may get lost. Details of the order may not be passed on to the dispatch department or the invoicing department. Order may be processed from customer who is unable to or unwilling to pay. A procedure will then be designed to receive, record and process the order, which achieves the above objective and has controls to prevent things from going wrong. So let us fill in the table. For example is the student enrolling for an ACCA course. Okay, so what are the objectives? So we need to, the example of a student enrolling for an ACCA course. So what must I take care of? Objective: I need to record accurately and efficiently which students are doing what paper and how much have they paid, right? What are the outputs? A class register, an analysis of sales revenue by paper and class. What are the inputs? Personal enrollments, mailed enrollment forms, faxed enrollment forms, emailed online enrollment. What could go wrong? That the amount I am charging might be wrong. Students could be enrolled for a class which is full. Enrolling staff could misappropriate the payments made. Faxes, mailed enrollments, etc. could be lost and not proceeded. We will now go on to consider several key financial statements that operate within most organizations: purchasing and sales, payroll, cash, working capital management. So let us see these one by one. I hope you're able to understand this lesson so far. It's very theoretical and it is kind of boring, but I'm sure you'll get through this. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments below. And then we have the purchasing system. The main stages in purchasing cycle and the issues to be considered are as follows. So, what are the steps in the purchasing system? Requisition, ordering, goods received, invoice received, invoice recorded, and payment made. What is requisition? So, the staff decide what goods or services they wish to purchase and produce a purchase requisition. So, they first check what raw materials they want, what do they want to purchase, and then they make a requisition for whatever they want to purchase. This is authorized by department supervisor and passed to the purchasing or ordering department. Ordering. Purchase department places order with the suppliers, obtains several quotations to get the most competitive price. Order may be authorized, especially if the amount is large, and then we get the goods. Goods should be inspected to ensure that they are in a good condition and the quality is correct. A record should be kept of what all goods we have received. Invoice received. Since we are buying the goods, we get the invoice as well. So the supplier bills company for goods services. So Before recording in the accounts, checks are made to ensure goods were received and that the price is correct, i.e., same as the order. Invoice recorded, so it is recorded in the company's accounting system, manual or computerized, and then the payment is made. A check is produced for the amount owing. This will be approved for the payment by a senior manager who will first check that the details on the check agree with the invoices. Now we have the purchasing cycle. So the XYZ Limited is a company manufacturing handbags. Describe what will happen when the company purchases some leather to produce a handbag. So the first step is requisition. So what was requisition? As we saw in the requisition stage, we find out what are the raw materials which we do not have, and then we make a requisition for that, and then we communicate it to the purchasing or the ordering department, where they further place the orders. So let's see, in this particular case, what happens in the requisition. The production department plans what items will be produced and consults with the inventory department to see if the sufficient quantities of the required raw materials are available. The inventory clerk realizes that there is an insufficient quantity of leather and so prepares a requisition in order to order more. In a computerized system, the inventory system may be linked with the purchasing system and automatically reorders when the inventory quantity falls to a certain level. After requisition, we have the ordering. The purchasing clerk checks the price charged by 3 regular reliable suppliers and places order with one of the one whoever charges the best price. A copy of the order is sent to the goods inwards clerk so that he knows to expect these goods, and also to the accounts department. Invoice is received. So since we have bought the goods, the invoice is received. The invoice is received by the accounting department. The clerk checks the price charged, agrees with the price on the order, and that the goods have been received. The invoice is then passed to the requisitioning department for approval and is coded according to the purchase type. Okay, moving on, we have invoice recorded. The invoice is entered into the accounting system and it is manual or computerized to the coded account. So we know that the invoice is received, and after it is being received, it will be recorded, and then the payment is made. At the end of the following month, the suppliers normally give a month's credit. Payment is made via BACS or CHAPS. So BACS is the bank-to-bank transfer of the UK. This is submitted to the managing director to be signed together with the invoice to prove that it is a valid business expense. So managing director signs it. Information on revenue or expenses is more useful if it can be analyzed by type and department. Okay, so what are the steps in the purchasing system? Requisition, ordering, receiving invoice, recording the invoice, and the payment being made. So then now we have purchasing cycle controls. So just do it yourself. What can go wrong and what can go right? This is very easy. Just do it yourself. If you have doubts, then I'll discuss it. Now we have the sales system. So what are the steps which are involved in the sales systems? Just the way we did for the purchase system. Now let's do the sales system. So the first one is order received. So when somebody places an order with our organization for sales, we get the order. That is the first step. So order is received depending on the business. Orders may be received by post, fax, telephone, in person, electronically. A record should be made of incoming orders so that a check can be made that they all have been processed. And then orders processed, a check should be made to ensure that the customer has a valid credit account or has already paid in cash. A check should be made that the goods are in the inventory. An order confirmation may be sent to the customer detailing when the goods will be dispatched. So first the order is received, and then we process the order and check everything, and then we dispatch the goods. So goods dispatched. The goods are sent to the customer. A document called a goods dispatch note is produced, which will be signed by the customer confirming that the goods were received in good condition, and then invoice. An invoice is sent to the customer detailing the amount charged for the goods, and then we record it into the accounts. The invoice is coded and then entered into the accounts. Then the payment will be received. So payment is then received by check or credit transfer from the customers. Control should be in place to ensure that the staff are not in a position to misappropriate the payment. And then the credit controller contacts those customers who are late in paying. Hope that's clear. So now let us see what is a credit control. So it is important that a company only sells goods to those who are able and willing to pay for them. For some businesses such as fast food outlet, customers pay in cash or by credit card so that the company is assured of payment. For most businesses, companies buy and sell on credit, meaning that they pay for the goods purchased and receive payments themselves for the sale sometime after the goods or services are delivered. It is vital that a company only gives a credit account after careful consideration of the likelihood of receiving payment. The credit controller will ask companies who wish to obtain credit to complete an application form and some time to give a reference from the bank and an existing supplier. The credit controller then sets a credit limit, which will normally also be quite low. The credit controller also monitors which companies are paying in late and chases the late payers when necessary. So, if there is a company manufacturing handbags, describe the rules. So, you can pause the video and do it yourself. Order received, order processed, goods dispatched, invoicing, recorded in the accounts, and payment received. Even the test your understanding, you can do it by yourself. The payroll system. So what is the payroll system? Let us see. So the so payroll is just paying the employees the amount, their salary or wages. So let us see the main stages in the payroll system and the issues to be considered as follows. The first one is hours worked recorded. So hourly paid employees will record details of hours worked. This is usually done using clock cards, time cards, punch cards on which a machine records starting and finishing times of work. Hours worked are usually authorized by a supervisor. So the first thing that is that hours worked are recorded. And then we have overtime recorded. So salaried employees who are not paid in an hourly rate may receive additional pay for overtime hours. May receive additional pay for overtime hours. So if they submit a timesheet with details of the hours worked. And then we have pay rates obtained. So per hour or per month. If it is a manual system, the pay clerk will manually look these up. If it is a computerized system, the computer will do so. When pay rates are changed, this must be authorized by a senior manager. So whenever there is a change in the pay rates, it should be authorized by a senior manager. Pay calculated. So then we need to calculate the pay, like for example hours into rate or a monthly pay. If calculated manually, someone else should check for the transactions, then deductions are calculated. So depending on the country, this could be tax or social security, so that has to be deducted from the gross pay. And then we have net pay paid to employees, so usually via a transfer from company's bank account to employee's bank account, occasionally via cash. Supervision is required to prevent theft, and employees should sign to acknowledge receipt of the money. Now we have illustration to the payroll system. So hours worked recorded, overtime recorded, pay rates are obtained, pay is calculated, deductions are calculated, net pay is paid to the employee. Test your understanding 5. I hope okay. So test your understanding 5, we have variable data. So incorrect levels of work recorded leading to employees being over or underpaid. So how do you control that? So we can, like when such a situation occurs where we have entered incorrect data, we can take control measures that all overtime and work information will be verified and authorized by the management. The second one is fixed data, fraudulent creations of examples that do not exist. Okay, so we need to segregate the duties within the payroll department. Changes to fixed employee data, staff data should also be reviewed, and verification of the employee identity must be done. calculations. Okay, how to look after the calculation? We need to do random checks on the payroll calculations, and we need to use automated payroll systems. Production of reports and payments. Okay, so we need automated payroll system, reconciliation of payments made, and authorization of wage payment. Moving on, we have the cash system. So, when we refer to the cash system, we are sometimes referring to the banking system and payments into and from the bank account. So, this overlaps with our consideration of the sales, purchases, and wages systems above. We also need to consider the petty cash system. So, we just saw what was the petty cash system. What is petty cash? Petty cash are the tiny expenses which are not related to the routine business, like buying tea, buying coffee, buying beverages, etc. So what comes under cash system? Receipt system, payment system, and petty cash system. So what is the receipt system? The first part of the cash system. So what is receipt system? Checks are received from the credit customers. These are recorded in the cash book and in the customer's personal account. The cashier then pays the checks into the company's bank account. Controls must be in place to ensure that the check cannot be misappropriated before it is paid into the bank. So typical controls would include having 2 employees open the mail and listing the checks received, and a supervisor checking that all the checks received were banked. Some customers may pay money directly into the company's bank account over by using BACS or CHAPS transfers. The cashier should go through the bank system carefully, enter details into the cash book, and ensure that the details are passed on to the sales ledger section to deduct the amount from the customer's balance. Now, what is payment system? Payment system is just the opposite of the receipt system. So companies pay their suppliers usually monthly and by using a check. So a check requisition is prepared for each payment. This is a form in which details the reason why a check is required. All that is filled. A check will be prepared, and the check requisition, and the invoices to be paid will be submitted to a senior manager. So the senior manager gives authorization or gives approval to have the check signed. Checks for a large amount of money will usually require 2 signatories. So if there are checks for a large amount, how many signatories it will need? It will need 2 signatories. If the company pays its suppliers through direct bank transfers, i.e. via BACS, each transfer should be approved by a senior manager. So it should be approved by a senior manager before it is set up. What is the petty cash system? So companies will need to keep a certain amount of cash on hand to pay for small expenses such as postage stamps, biscuits, taxi fares, etc. A check will be made out to cash to generate the initial cash for the system. So a check will be made out to cash to generate the initial cash for the system. As staff claim against the petty cash system, they complete vouchers stating what the payment is for and attach a receipt to prove the amount. So the staff claim against the petty cash system, so they have to complete vouchers stating what the payment is for and attach a receipt to prove the amount. So at regular intervals, a further check is made out to cash to replenish the petty cash which has been sent. So whatever cash has been spent till now, it will be replenished at regular intervals with the further checks. The supervisor will inspect the receipts and vouchers at that point. Illustration 3. The cash system. So what is the cash system? We just saw that. So there are 3 types of cash system: receipts, payment, and petty cash. XYZ Limited is a company manufacturing handbags. Paul Hewson is the sales manager and attends a trade exhibition. He wishes to claim the train and taxi fares through the petty cash system. Describe the process by which he does this. He fills out a petty cash voucher detailing the purpose of the claim. He should also record his department and the purpose of the visit so that it can be coded to the correct expense heading. He staples the receipt to the back. If the expenditure is over a certain amount, which will vary according to the company, he will need to get authorization from his supervisor. The cashier gives him the money. The cashier records the payment in the petty cash book and it is codes it as sales travel. Okay, next is the inventory system. So what do you understand by inventory system? The inventory system is really several systems which can be summarized at follow. So you know, inventory is where the materials are kept, where the goods are kept, right? It's where the finished goods, raw materials, etc., everything is stored. That is what an inventory is called. So the first step is purchasing of raw materials. Okay, so purchasing of raw materials, it is also related to the purchasing system, obviously. Second one is the raw materials. So raw materials must be valued at the year end. And then after purchasing the raw materials, then we finally have raw materials. After having the raw materials, then we have work in progress, that it will take some time for the work to be done. This must also be valued at the end of the year. And then when the work in progress is done, we get the finished goods, which is finally the finished goods. This must also be valued at the end of the year. And what do we do with the finished goods? We sell the inventory, right? So selling is also again related to the sales systems. I hope that's clear. Purchasing of raw materials, finally having raw materials, work in progress, finished good, inventory, sold. The production manager will decide on the required inventory purchases, bearing in mind the items to be produced and the inventory balance on hand. In some automated systems, the raw materials will be ordered automatically when the balance falls to a certain level. The goods are received and are stored in the raw material store. So when the goods are required for production, the production manager completes a material requisition form and gets the goods from the store. So the goods are then made into work in progress, partially completed goods, and eventually they become finished goods. The length of this process depends on the type of the item being produced. So when the goods are sold, a record must be made of the quantity removed from the inventory. Obviously, you need to record what goes out of the inventory, right, and what comes into the inventory. At the end of the year, all inventory will be counted and valued so that the statement of the financial position, which is the balance sheet, can be produced. XYZ Limited is a company manufacturing handbags. Describe the inventory system as it relates to the production of a handbag. So the production manager decides what items will be produced and checks the amount of raw material which are required, and then he produces a purchase requisition for the raw materials which he'll be requiring, like the leather, zips, etc. And then the goods arrive and are included in the raw material inventory. And then the production department requisitions to the raw materials needed. Then the handbags are produced, becoming the work in progress, and then they become the finished goods. And then the finished handbags are added to the finished goods inventory records, and then they are transferred to the warehouse. So when the goods are become finished goods, they are transferred to the warehouse from the inventory, and then the handbags are sold and they are deducted from the finished goods records. So what is the purpose of organizational control? So why do we need to have organizational control? What are the reasons? So control within an organization has several purposes. So the first and foremost reason is to safeguard the company's assets. So in order to safeguard the company's assets and various, valuable items, we need to have organizational control. So if assets are stolen or damaged, the company will have to spend so much money to replace them. The second is obviously efficiency. In order to have an efficient business, then we need to have organizational control. So inefficient business practices are a waste of the company's money. And then the third one is to prevent fraud. So fraud will be prevented obviously if you have a control over the organization. So fraud means the loss of valuable resources belonging to the company or the shareholders. And then we have to prevent errors. So errors can lead to losses in efficiency, time spent correcting. So it will lead to time gets wasted when you sit and keep rectifying the errors you've made, right? Instead, you can just make it in a good manner the first time. Or loss of assets, failing to invoice the correct amount, paying for goods which have not been received, etc. So by doing that, you are at a loss, obviously, right? Loss of time, loss of asset, loss of money, various problems. So this ties in with the corporate governance, which is covered elsewhere in this workbook. The directors are required to introduce a good system of controls to safeguard the company's assets and to protect the shareholders' investment. Most of our focus will be on financial controls. The company should introduce controls to prevent fraud and error. So what is the purpose of organizational control? We just saw that. XYZ Limited is a company manufacturing handbags. So first one is the safeguarding company's asset. So regular inventory counts and investigation of quantity. So why do we have to do that? Obviously, so people don't steal and there's no, we don't suffer. Efficiency. So efficiency means that it should get several quotations before placing a purchase order. So it is a waste of money if you spend more than what is actually required. And then we have prevent fraud. So two people should open the post and list the contents. So there could be misappropriation of checks and cash before they are banked. So they need to be checked and they need to be, in control. And then we have prevent errors. The payroll calculation for a sample of employees should be checked each month. So the payroll calculations must be checked like frequently. So otherwise it is a waste of money to pay them too much, and it is demoralizing the employees if you pay too less. So completed from a fast food outlet, I think you can do it yourself. The way we have discussed the handbag company, it's the same way. And company's assets so people don't steal. Efficiency, this works with the procedures, preventing of fraud and preventing of errors. It is the same as the payroll. Okay. So why controls and systems are important? Controls are important in all systems for the reasons given above. The specific issue in the systems are mentioned here as follows. So purchasing system. Why? So how does that help? In purchasing system, safeguarding company's assets. So ensuring that only goods that have been received are paid for and ensuring goods are in a good condition. Efficiency. So efficiency is when we ensure that we are buying at a good price or negotiating at a good amount. And then prevention of fraud. So preventing purchasing staff accepting payments from suppliers to persuade them to purchase from that supplier. And then we have to prevent errors, ensuring that the current amount is charged and the purchases are all recorded. That's the same way with sales, and that's the same way with wages as well. So cash, it's the same way with cash, it's the same way with inventory. I hope that's clear. You can just pause the video and do. Now we have why controls and systems are important. Okay, you can do this also by yourself. This is another example. So let's do test your understanding 7. Benjamin recently began trade as a mechanic. His business has been a great success, and due to the volume of work, he has decided to hire a part-time bookkeeper. Benjamin wishes to have as little as possible to do with the finances of his business. At the end of each day, he tells his bookkeeper which jobs have been undertaken that day and which customers they relate to. The bookkeeper then records the transaction, matches the work described to the price list, and raises invoices as appropriate. She processes any receipts from customers as they arrive. In addition, the bookkeeper processes all purchase invoices that come into the business and make payments as and when needed. Ben has no further involvement in the accounting system. So identify the major weakness in Benjamin's accounting system and what improvements he can make. So what is the major weakness? So the bookkeeper receives information verbally, and they don't really do it manually. So there is very real risk that she may record the information incorrectly. And there is also if the bookkeeper is dishonest, then there will be issues. So there need to be more checks and there should be organizational control. And then there is no checking of the accounting system. So we need that also, because that person can do fraud, right? And the possible improvements are that Ben should consider segregation of duties. Ben must be involved with the maintenance, and Ben must keep a written record of everything. Now we have automated systems. What is automated systems? Automated computerized systems are nowadays used by most organizations. So I'm giving you a minute, just read it yourself, then I'll discuss. Okay, so what is automated system? So automated or computerized systems are nowadays used by most of the organizations with the exception of very small firms. So large companies will have accounting softwares especially written for their needs. So bespoke systems, whereas smaller companies will purchase a standardized accounting package that has been written to suit any company off the shelf package. So, what are automated systems as follows? Let's see what are automated systems. So, the first thing is uniform processing of transactions. So, there is a uniform way of processing any transactions, right? So, every transaction will be performed in the exactly same way. Lack of segregation of functions. One person in the country, the IT manager, has a lot of power as he or she can access all the data within the company. So, potential for data to be corrupted easily. An inexpert operator could accidentally corrupt data. Computer files can become corrupted on their own. Alternatively, users may input data incorrectly. Potential for increased management supervision. So, the management must be aware with what's going on, right? Management can monitor the activities of the subordinates easily. Exception reports can be used to highlight unusual transactions. So, automated system. What are the features? Uniform processing of all the transactions. There is a lack of segregation of duties, segregation of functions, right? Potential for data to be corrupted easily, and then potential for increased management supervision. So the records maintained under manual and automated systems are similar, but then the use of an automated system allows the data to be analyzed more easily in a variety of ways. So for example, it would be very time consuming to produce a report showing how long customers have owed money under a manual system, but it's very quick when you use an automated system or a computer system, right? Now we have illustration 6. So XYZ Limited is a company manufacturing handbags. Discuss Describe 5 specific advantages to XYZ Limited of automating its financial system. So, okay, just think about it yourself and read it. I'm sure you'll be able to understand it. Giving you 5 seconds. Okay, is that clear? ABC Limited is an ACCA tuition provider. Give 3 examples of information that would be useful to the business and easily obtained using a computerized system. So, how this is very easy. You know what the advantages are. It's easy to find out people, it is easy to find out data, it is easy to find out the enrollment numbers and the names and how many exams they've given, etc. etc. Now we have a comparison of the manual systems versus the automated systems. So let's see what the differences are. So a comparison of manual and automated systems. So manual and automated systems have their own advantages and their own disadvantages as well. So the first advantage of manual system, manual is basically bookkeeping. So low capital cost. You don't need to buy some expensive computers. So it is low capital cost. No computer experience required. So if somebody doesn't know how to operate a computer, that doesn't matter. Easy to correct errors. So when there are any errors in a manual system, it's okay. We can just use a whitener. Ledgers are portable. So when you have ledgers, you can just carry them in your bag and take them anywhere you want to. Can review the transactions for logical sense while entering or performing calculations. So it is logical to say something you've written with pen. What are the disadvantages? So the main disadvantage is very slow. It's gonna take so much time. More likely to make calculation errors. So when you're doing calculations by hand mentally, then you might make errors. Analysis of information is more time consuming. So when you analyze every single thing, it is time consuming. it is less easy to audit. So if someone wants to audit, it's not easy to see a manual handwritten thing and try to audit it, right? Now we have the advantages of automated system. It is quicker, it can perform more complex calculations, fewer errors, more security, easier to sort and analyze data. Disadvantages is the capital cost, training cost. So in case someone is not experienced, we have to train them. Less easy to correct errors. So it is very not easy to correct errors in an automated system, because like you, for editing one thing we need to edit the whole of the code. Systems can crash. Advantages, so we just did this. Automating, so quicker, fewer errors, more security, easier to sort and analyze data. What are the disadvantages? The capital cost, training cost, less easy to correct errors, systems can crash. Now that's it, we're done with the chapter. Let's do the practice questions. You are given the following extract. The clerk multiplies the hours worked by the hourly rate to determine the gross pay. What does that say? So this is a single procedure, not a system, right? So a system would involve a lot of stages, but in this is just a single procedure. So the answer is C. Ian is trying to design a system for the processing of orders from customers. Which of the following is not likely to be an objective of the system? So Ian is trying to design a system for the processing of order. So which is not an objective? So okay, to ensure that the orders are processed promptly, to ensure that the goods are only dispatched to the customers who are likely to pay, to ensure that all orders are recorded, to ensure that customers sign to accept the goods. The answer is D. Why? Because while getting customers to sign for receipt, it is likely to be a procedure that Ian's built into a system. It is unlikely to be the objective of the system. That is never the objective of the system, right? Which of the following is not a stage in standard purchases system? Receipt of good, receipt of cash, placing of order, matching the invoices. Obviously the answer is B, because when you purchase something, you are the person who is giving out the money. Why will you get the money, right? Which of the following would be earliest in the sales cycle for a company selling goods on credit to wholesalers? Okay. Which of the following would be earliest in the sales cycle? So what would be the first thing? Dispatch of good, receipt of order, dispatch of invoice, or receipt of the payment. What would be the first step? I think it's very obvious that you first get the order, right? So receipt of the order, then you have the dispatch of the goods, and then dispatch of the invoice, and the receipt of the payment. Consider the following stages in the inventory control system: transfer to warehouse, requisition of raw material, year-end inventory check, purchases of the raw material. What order will these stages be performed in? Okay, so the first one is obviously requisition of the raw materials, and then you purchase the raw materials, or what? Obviously you purchase the raw material after requisition. So let's just write it down: 1, 2. And what happens after that? When you purchase the raw materials, you transfer it to the warehouse, and then at the year end you check it out. So the answer is 1, 2, 1. No, the answer is 2, 4, 1, 3. 2, 4, 1, 3. The answer is D. Which of these controls relate to the purchasing system? Agreeing invoices to good received notes, checking creditworthiness, authorizing timesheet, keeping the finished goods warehouse locked. So what is the answer of 14? The answer is A. Why? Because agreeing to invoices to the good received notes. B is relating to the sales system, C will be in the payroll system, while D would be in control of the inventory system. A is what belongs to the purchasing system. Which of these control relates to the sales system? Matching of cash to invoices received, calculating overtime payments, authorization of requisition form, matching the cash received to invoice sent. So obviously 15 is D, right? I think it's obvious. Which of the following is not a feature of an automated system? Uniform processing of transaction, lack of segregation of functions, reduced chance of data corruption, potential for increased management. So the answer is of 16 is C. The primary purposes of control within an organization are to safeguard companies' assets, improve efficiency, and prevent fraud and errors. Is it true or is it false? It is true. Consider the following system features: low capital costs, less potential of errors, improved security, transactions can be viewed for logical sense. What are the features of an automated? Okay, so what are the for the automated system? The automated system is 3 and what? 2 and 3. The answer is 2 and 3, which is B. Okay, that's it. We're done with this chapter. I hope it's clear. It was a very easy chapter, but then it was lengthy. Check the description box for the link of the recordings of the other videos as well. We will also be doing the test kits of the same. Okay, thank you.